Hai, which is the Tiger Claw system of Kung Fu, and chief representative of that style here in the Caribbean. I'm under the directorship of Mr. Wei Hung, who is the chief grand master of the East Coast Kung Fu Federation. Mr. Hung represents to me a true master of the art. When I look at Mr. Hung, I see the masters before him and the masters before him, masters before him, dating back to the actual time that the art was developed.
The main thing is this, to develop the strength as well as the coordination. You bring your hand up loosely, develop the strength to the front part. Bring it. You try to make every movement.
The Kung Fu master seeks unity of body and spirit through an exercise ritual based on animal movements. He displays the agility and grace of a jungle cat. Lightly, quickly maneuvering to avoid an opponent, circling, surprising, striking.
The next movement.
There are 4 styles in modern Kung Fu, each based on the fighting techniques of an animal.
After this move,
Tiger Claw uses power and clawing hand blows. Eagle Claw stresses agility in the side of the hand. Praying Mantis uses a grabbing action. Wing Chun is a fast road to self-defense. They all began in the Shaolin Temple in China, the deadly product of pacifists.
Our salutation.
We may not have knives, so make every finger a dagger. Without spears, every arm must be a spear, and every open hand a sword.
When I met Mr. Hung and started studying under him, he didn't just teach me a physical movement, he also taught me how to put my spirit into it. And I found that the technique isn't the art itself. You know, like the technique is maybe 75%, you know, maybe even less. Maybe the technique is 10% and the spirit is 90%. That's what they mean by certain martial artists have the type of mentality that if they're in front of 1,000 people, they will fight those 1,000 people. And if they knew that they could never win, then they would attack. You know, if there is an opponent too strong for me, then I will simply claw him to shreds. You know, I will punch him and take his pride away. Psychologically, I will defeat him. I will defeat him in every way possible, not only physically, psychologically, and spiritually. I mean, he will really think he's facing a tiger.
My name is Moses Powell. I've been studying jiu-jitsu for the last 20 years. I'm the master Florendo Visitacion. And at this particular time, I'm a senior master in the art of jiu-jitsu Te and jiu-jitsu Ryu.
Jiu-jitsu in Japanese means the gentle art. Its movements seem as soft and flowing as water. The jiu-jitsu master gives way, letting his opponent's own power and weight defeat him. Hitting him is like crashing into a door that you expect to be locked, but isn't. He senses your balance or lack of it. He pushes when pulled, pulls when pushed. As the Chinese book, the I Ching, says, under heaven, nothing is more soft and yielding than water. Yet for attacking the solid and strong, nothing is better. It has no equal.
You can't take a man and tell him he must be rigid when he flows, you know, like a stream.
I'd never seen jiu-jitsu done And to see this huge person just flying through the air and rolling out, not making a sound, is very beautiful and very frightening.
He's big, and he's fast, and he's knowledgeable, and he's a gentleman. And he's an exceptional man.
My type of rollouts are not like you might take it. Like it just looks beautiful, but it's a very dangerous thing because if I can attack with those, then it's something else, you know. And most people just look at it and say, it's unbelievable, but they don't even see the point. Because whoever blocked the rollout? Movement, being where you're supposed to be at the right time. It's timing. And when a man attacks you, you attack him for greater speed, but always keep him on balance because he thinks that he's really getting over, but you're coming in also. See, when a man drives towards you and you move back, you take away strength. But as he's driving towards you, you move towards him, and then respecting him, you sidestep, dealing with the circle motion, and destroy his whole balance structure. If I touch you, you can forget it. I have you.
Karate is direct force. It demands strength and a concentration of power. The heart of its study is the kata, a ritual of prearranged movements designed to fit every combat situation. When you leave a karate dojo, you're ready for anything.
If you teach karate without philosophy, you're simply a street fighter. You're simply a fighter. If I pick up a garbage can and I hit somebody in the head with it, there's no philosophy to it. I don't believe that karate is simply just a set of exercises where you can hurt somebody. You know how much you can do. You know quite well that you're looking at a person, you know you can kill this person, you know you can cripple him 55 different ways. After a while, it becomes almost senseless. Why should I do it? I mean, why should I hurt this guy? For what? I should be able to handle and disarm mentally and physically my opponent without even picking up my hands, without the threat of violence. If somebody attacks me in a group situation or a knife or a gun, they're going to get hurt pretty badly. I'm also forced not only to hit him, but I'm also forced to incapacitate him, which means if he has a knife or a razor blade, I'll break his knee. I'm very fond of doing that. If a guy gets his knee broken, every time he's ready to attack somebody, he's going to think of his knee, or he's going to think of his elbow, or he's going to think of his ribs, or he's going to think that the reason half of his face is deformed is because he attacked somebody and he didn't do quite well. It's a good reminder for somebody.
Well, I was mugged. Well, there was an attempted mugging, I'll put it that way. I walked into an elevator. I'd just gotten out of the Marine Corps. And I thought I was Superman anyway, you know. And I walked into the elevator, and this guy stood there, and he said, "Oh, that's a nice watch you have in the ring, you know." And he pulls out this knife, and he tells me to take it off. So one thing led to another, and he went to the hospital, and I went home. My fantasy in terms of development is to be able to create in the midst of battle. The difference between myself and a street fighter is a street fighter he has a certain amount of techniques that's worked for him in combat situations. Let's say he has maybe 7 or 8 techniques. Now, because I have, say, 20 katas, I have the opportunity to take from each of these katas and interchange techniques and create techniques in the midst of a fight. Once the street fighter runs the limit of his technique, he has to repeat himself. I don't.
Stepping front kick, back knuckle. And...
But I'm not a believer in systems. I think it's very good to pick and choose from different styles. I think we're very fortunate here in the United States they have the opportunity to. In Japan, you have strictly a Japanese system. In Korea, you have strictly a Korean system. In China, strictly a Chinese system, and they do not deviate. Well, I'm not going to burden myself saying this is the only way. If I'd have done that, I would never won a tournament.
Uppercut, right hand, uppercut into the jaw.
If I'm going to fight a top-notch fighter, I would actually, in my mind, create fight scenes in my mind against this individual. I would see where his strong points were, or how he would attack, and how could I defend against his strong attacks. Then I would say, well, what are his weak points? What can I do to penetrate that defense? So when I got into the ring with this man, I had fought him many, many times.
Let the group relax. Ready? Fight! Fight!
You have to have a base to build from. You just can't go in there and start having them kick and punch. We first start teaching students how to block, how to ward off an attack, ward off a kick at you, or a punch at you, or attack down the head with a club, or whatever the case may be. Maybe the katas do not teach you how to fight, but it teaches you balance, it teaches you coordination, it develops your power. So katas have a very integral part of training.
3.
People that are very, very proficient walk a certain way. They have a kind of a walk I think that people can really, that a guy who's going to start trouble with avoids. Guys who are going to start trouble really analyze the guy they're going to jump on. They're looking at him and trying to figure out, can this guy do anything or whatever. And people that are very, very proficient can kind of have a move, I think, or a feeling that just avoids it. You can never be the biggest gun on the block. I don't care how good you are at any age. There's always somebody better than you. I don't care how good you are. You know, when you say, well, I'm better than anybody else, that's fine. What happens if they shoot your head off? What you're trying to accomplish in this whole thing is to be able to walk down that block without having to worry about being attacked. If you are attacked, then handle it to the best of your knowledge. But if you're not attacked, then keep right on walking.
Jeet Kune Do is Bruce Lee's synthesis of the martial arts. He believed in using what's best from each style. Karate punches, boxing jabs, kung fu kicks. He asked his students to use their creativity and resourcefulness, to let what works be the test for what's right. That it worked is best seen in Bruce himself, a thinking, inventive, and powerful martial artist. This idea of individuality is reflected in the teachings of his friend and former student, Dan Inosanto, black belt in Kempo Karate and expert in the Philippine art of Eskrima.
In Bruce's method or system, or whatever you want to call it, because it's not a style, it's not a method, but it was trying to find yourself physically and mentally and emotionally and spiritually. In other words, the totality of the person. I found his art easier to express because I wasn't confined to move a certain way, or I wasn't confined to being a certain horse. I wasn't confined to use a certain block. The opponent was my technique. He used to say, respond like an echo, adapt like a shadow. Bruce taught us to appreciate all systems, but not to be bound by a system. Chizao is a sensitivity drill. It's a game, but it's a tough game to play. It looks like patty cake, but it can be very tough. It's to teach you sensitivity. This is my way of expressing Jeet Kune Do through the Filipino arts. He once told me this, if I can relate this. He says, you're Filipino, Dan, but don't make the mistake of embracing everything that's Filipino. So then you'll miss the whole universe. We don't carry the name Jeet Kune Do, we carry the memory of our instructor. Just as one of my students, who's a writer, says, he told me to forget Bruce Lee so that Bruce Lee can be remembered. We got to go on. Bruce is dead now. We have to find our own goal. You know, and that's probably what he wanted us to do.
The techniques that were developed for countering particular moves were the way people fought back, again, hundreds and thousands of years ago. And a lot of the techniques that were developed because of the situations that happened at that particular time. But in our country, you know, a guy doesn't warn you when he's coming up behind you with a billy club or with a stocking full of sand or a knife or a gun. So you have to adapt the techniques for today's living in our country. There's muggings, there's rape, there's murders going on constantly, and you have no warning. I mean, you don't know who's the assailant. You don't know when it's going to happen. Therefore, the techniques have to be taught in such a way that they are unorthodox. They may not be precise. You may not be in the right position at the right time. You're not going to be in a proper stance. You can't get in a stance. A lot of times you're cornered up against a car or in a position where you can't get in a proper orthodox-looking position. But you're going to have to do the best you can from the position you're in.
Choosing a style is a matter of personality. Making it work for you is a matter of dedication. Getting deep into the seemingly aimless moves, which are the building blocks of mastery. It is a matter of faith. If you believe they will work when you need them, they will.
People have forgotten that the basic concept is to kill your opponent. You know, I mean, numbers of opponents. That's just one in a circumstance where there's someone always to say yame, someone to stop it, or at the count of 10. There's no count of 10 when you're in a combat situation. You know, if there is a circle and my mother walks in the circle, and my mother's in the martial arts and she knows better, if she walks in a circle, she's going too. Like it's life against life, you know? And if you don't want to hurt him, then he will hurt you.
The point is to kill, but one kill for survival, not for material wealth. Martial arts doesn't go and say, I'm going to kill you because I want this and I want that. He takes you away only if you threaten his environment, which is his own self.
These guys surrounded me and they wanted some money. And there's about 10 or 15 of them. They started pulling out knives and stuff, you know. And I told the guy nearest to me, I told him, I said, you know, the first one I'm going to kill is you. And they just made a little hole and I walked away.
After practice, we would always walk and rap and talk about different techniques. But at that time, we had stopped by a restaurant and we had a meal, and the lady of the restaurant gave us some chopsticks as gifts. And I had them in my pocket. And as we were walking down the street, 2 people accosted us and they said, we would like your money. And they moved back, you know, and they said, hey, I have a gun here. And I took the chopsticks out and I poked it in both his eyes, hit him in the throat, swept him, and started kicking him. And the only reason I stopped was because my partner brought me away.
A guy throws a punch at you, so you break his arm, take his eyes out, then maybe you were acting a little harshly. But then again, he might have had 3 guys in the side, and you had to do that to prove a point, or to stop what could have came, you know.
Like, if I got into a static with someone, I would try to talk my way out. I would try to, if I could walk away from the fight, I'd try to walk away from it. But once the person touched me or make some motion like he's going to bring some harm to me, I'd do what I have to do.
My philosophy about defense is that you can call me anything you like. You can say anything you like. You can curse my mother, my father, call me a faggot, whatever you choose to do. But the moment you put your hands on me, I'm going to hurt you, man. It's a guarantee.
Where does the long road to mastery in the martial arts begin?
It was just a way of protecting yourself at that time because nobody else was. Police seemed not to care. Parents were too busy.
I was afraid to grow up, actually. I had, no idea what I wanted to be.
I wanted to be an artist. And the only thing that worked was martial arts. Well, I mean, everybody knows what the South Bronx is like. Everybody knows what any poor section of any city is like, There's a lot of energy happening, and there's no place to focus that energy at. So what happens, you find the people focusing it at each other. I've had my share of street fights. I was in a gang, street gang.
I've seen a lot. And bear witness to a lot. So I didn't have to go to Vietnam. I lived in Vietnam, That's where I come from. Stand on the sidewalk and swing my feet in muddy waters. We didn't have centers when I was coming up, or pools. I was gang fighting and stuff like that. Survival of the fittest, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, you come from that. People call it a ghetto. I called it home. I was 8 years old. I was 8. I studied under a master named Wong Jung. He taught me a style called Silom Ji. And the style more or less just represented some very, very basic punches and very, very basic blocks. My mother got me into the martial arts because I had asthma and sick kid, little, and a rough neighborhood. My brothers practiced the martial arts before I did, so therefore I had something to motivate me by. They were always defeating me, and they always had good technique, and I wanted to be like that.
Block the punch, and then take the knife away. Up, up.
Some kids are lucky enough to be taught by a great martial artist living right in the neighborhood.
Now grab the arm and twist it back. Shoot, though, in the face.
Thomas LePuppet, second member of the Black Belt Hall of Fame, inspires self-esteem by teaching self-defense.
So right in the face.
Now you have a lot of movies, a lot of programs, kung fu, different things that the kids get to see on television, and they really don't understand what it's all about. They see it, and then they try it, not knowing what they're doing, and can't hurt each other. Everybody's seen Bruce Lee, everybody wants to punch, and everybody wants to kick. The martial arts is much more involved than just punching and kicking.
There are no 30-day wonders turned out in the martial arts schools. You don't hear words like magic or luck. A student entering a good dojo for the first time can expect rigor and discipline, calisthenics, falling, hitting, contact, work, and plenty of sweat. He gains new respect for the word practice, drilling and drilling the basic forms to develop speed, strength, and balance. He discovers new thresholds of pain and exhaustion. Then, after others have quit, but he's still fighting, after years of meeting his own challenges, he becomes a martial artist. His responses are as automatic as his heartbeat. He's fit and strong, in command of his body, with full confidence in his ability to defend himself. To the martial artist, earning a black belt is just the beginning. It's the first plateau, and he will spend a lifetime climbing the mountain.
When you're a fighter, the first thing you have to do is accept pain. If you get hit and that stops you or that blows your mind or it distracts you from the immediate situation, then you're going to get defeated. When you're fighting for your life, the only way that you can survive is to have that type of instinct. That even if you get hit, you're still going to go through it. Nothing can stop you. And if you've never had contact, no matter how much you study, right? If you don't practice your sparring, if you don't practice your contact, if you don't get hit, if you don't hit someone, then you don't know what it's